Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Kat and we are back on the floor of my bedroom for another book video, but this time it is a video that one of you requested. A few days ago I posted a story on my Instagram page asking you all what kinds of videos you wanted to see this month, and I immediately got a comment that I was absolutely obsessed with to do a nostalgic books that got me into reading video, and I was like 100% yes, let's run with that. So here we are. And I'm really excited about this for a couple reasons. Number one, because none of the books I'm talking about today I've actually ever shared on my channel, which I feel like a lot of the times whenever I do these types of like book rec videos, they start to sound really repetitive after a while, just because there's only so much creativity I can do with like book trope themed videos, and like I just get to the point where I start talking about the same ones over and over. So I'm really excited to get to kind of talk about like books that I've never really talked about before and that were like part of my childhood, and also just like the nostalgia that has come with them. And a lot of these are like big series that I feel like are core ones that everyone was into around my age and like growing up and stuff, so really excited for that. But also number two, I get this comment a lot whenever I tell people that I do booktube or talk about books online, and that is the response of, oh, I haven't read a book since high school, which is insane to me. If you're that person, please immediately go pick up a book. I don't really care what book, any book, and like educate yourself a little and join the rest of the world, because that statement just gives me the biggest ick. I think it is the most unattractive statement that you could possibly tell me, and like probably the most unattractive thing that you could say to any reader, but like specifically me, I can't with that. I just feel like whenever someone says that to me, and it's happened way too many times, like probably more often than it should, but whenever someone tells me that, I immediately want to stop having a conversation with that person, because why? That's just like, it's just ill. But anyways, I get that comment a lot of like people saying, oh yeah, I used to love reading when I was younger, but I fell out of love with it and I wouldn't even know how to like get back into it now, or what books to pick up or where to start. And so I feel like this video is also going to be really great for people who are in that stage of trying to get back into it, especially because I am talking about like a lot of the OG series that initially sparked my passion for reading, but I'm also going to throw in some newer series that have rekindled my love for it over the years, because I feel like a lot of readers who are probably around my age, like mid to late 20s now, have gone through this at least once in your life. But like I went through a period of time where I legit did not pick up a single book for fun for several years, and like it's even hard to say that now because I can't ever imagine doing that to myself again. Like I don't know how I did it the first time, but I grew up always being like the nerdy book girl that would always have a book at lunch. Like you did not see me at lunch without a book in my hand, and that was my entire personality throughout middle school, throughout high school. And then I hit college, and I feel like once I hit college, everything changed, as it kind of does for everyone, and like you just get busy, you're studying, you're reading textbooks, and so there's not a lot of like time or room or energy left to kind of pick up books for fun or do a lot of the things that you used to enjoy. And so that was like a period of 4 years where I actually did not pick up a single book, which it makes me so sad to think about, but like that will never happen again. But all of this to say, the moment I graduated, I feel like I almost immediately started my booktube, which like I feel like says a lot in itself, because I think it kind of shows how much I missed it. And then there were like 3 or 4 book series that really got me back into the groove of things, and there are a lot of like the core book series I think that are like super popular for people in their 20s today. And like I feel like if you've been kind of out of commission of reading for a while and now you're like an older adult in their 20s, these are series that you would really enjoy. And so I'm excited to start this video, and I feel like I've talked a lot, so I think we should just get started. But of course, we have to start at the very beginning of the series that started it all, and that is this one, which sadly, unfortunately, I actually don't have the first book to either, and I'll put a cover here. These are actually the other books in the series, but the reason why I don't have that one is because when I was younger, I was just starting out, I was just a little wee reader, and I had not yet learned my lesson about loaning books to people that probably shouldn't be trusted with my books. And like, I did get it back, I did get the book back, but it was completely in tatters. It wasn't a book that I could keep. and so I had to sadly get rid of it. And what's so sad about the whole thing too is that they don't even make this original cover anymore, so I was never able to replace it. Like, there's been a few other versions of the book, so they don't even sell this one anymore, and I have never been able to find it since. So sadly, I cannot show you that version of the cover. But if any of you have it and you want to send me a copy, please let me know, because I would love it, and like my heart would be so happy with that. I genuinely wish I could time travel back 10 years and like re-experience, relive the magic of this series all over again. Like, I still think about it to this day, the nostalgia, like the flashbacks of it. I feel like I have so many memories associated with the series, and like I think I'm convinced that at the time there were two types of reader girlies in the world, and one of them was the Harry Potter girlies. I was not a Harry Potter girl, and the second was the Percy Jackson girlies, and I think I will forever be a Percy Jackson girl at heart. I just feel like I read the Harry Potter books later on in life, and so I just think that they didn't hit different, and like I don't know if I ever talked about them on my channel before, and I like them. I feel like they weren't the same. Like, they didn't give me the same sense of magic and like nostalgia that the Percy Jackson series, I feel like, will always just have that place in my heart. So yeah, this is the first series. Did I even say the name yet? I haven't. This is the Percy Jackson and the Olympians series by Riordan. And I'm so sorry, I'm so deep in my feels right now. I feel like I'm giving you all the backstory and the lore that you didn't ask for, but the Percy Jackson and the Olympian series is about a 13-year-old boy, I think he's 13 in the first book, named Percy Jackson, and he has a few learning disabilities. He has like dyslexia and ADHD, I think. Don't quote me on that. It's been like literally 15 years, so I'm reciting this all from that memory. But he has a couple learning disabilities. He's kind of like a social outcast in high school. He's not super popular. He has like his one best friend that he hangs out with, but otherwise he's a loner, and like he just doesn't feel great about himself. He has a shitty, can I say that? A not well-behaved stepdad who low-key abuses him. I feel like it's kind of dark, and so he's kind of like miserable and depressed with his life until he gets attacked at school by this Greek creature slash monster, and finds out that he is actually the son of the Greek god Poseidon, who had a relationship with his mom, who is human, and that resulted in him being a demigod, which means half god. So he is the son of a god, and there are these Greek creatures slash monsters chasing him for some reason, and his mom never told him that he was a demigod, so he's like finding all of this out for the first time, and she takes him and like is pretty insistent on taking him to this camp, and he's like, okay mom, sure, like, but what the heck, like, what is this camp, what is this place, what's going on? And so she takes him to this camp. She ends up dying in the process of getting him there, and so her last like dying act is dropping him off at this camp, and he ends up here, and he's like, okay, what is this place? And it is a camp for people who are just like him, who are the sons and daughters of gods, and gods that had relationships with humans, and so all these kids are like demigod children, and they are all at this camp, firstly for the reason of like being protected from the outside world, because there are a lot of like Greek creatures and monsters trying to kill the children of the gods, but also so they can train at this camp and actually be trained to become heroes. And so he is now thrust into like the politics of this camp. He discovers that his disabilities, or what he thought were disabilities, are actually his greatest strengths, because they allow him to like have powers and like be better at being a hero. And then he also finds his friend, and he also ends up making two friends for the first time, and they kind of end up being like the golden trio from Harry Potter. They're the equivalent of like Harry, Hermione, and Ron in the series, and so they're always together. They end up going on this quest in the first book to retrieve the god Zeus's lightning bolt, because this is the whole reason that Percy's being chased down by these creatures, is that he is being accused of stealing the lightning bolt, which obviously he didn't, because he didn't even have any idea about like all of this like existing in the first place. And so he's like on this quest to clear his name basically with his two friends, and that is the entire plot of the first book. And so it's like set up very similarly to how Harry Potter is set up. Like every book is kind of a different quest. We have new characters that get introduced, but then there's like also an overarching plot line that slowly moves for each book. And so that's this series. But man, I really wish I had the ability to time travel, because it is such an amazing series. It's high fantasy, but there's also kind of like romance rolled in throughout. I wouldn't say romance is the main thing, so if that's what you're looking for, then maybe not this one. It's also very YA. Like, I was in 5th grade and I was 10 years old, so I wasn't reading like heavy spice yet. But there's also a secondary series that came after this one a few years ago, and like the amazing part of like when I was growing up in my childhood reading this series is that I was buying the books as they were being released, and like now the universe is so expansive and so wide. I actually think to this day, I haven't checked in, but I actually think the author is still writing books that could probably be traced back to this original series, which is so insane to think about. Haven't kept up with like really any of them. But after this one, there was also another series that was a continuation of Percy and like the same characters, but also added in the demigods of the Roman gods, which made things really interesting. We got new characters, new relationships, new plot lines. It was also a little bit mature because a lot of the characters throughout the books had like grown up and now they were in college and like were actually in romances with each other. So it was a lot more mature. Equally love that one. Actually, I honestly couldn't say. I couldn't tell you which one I love more. I love them both for different reasons. I feel like I love these because I grew up with them and they were just so like innocent and fun and just full of magic and adventure. But then the other ones I think kind of started me in the romance path of things. So I love them both equally for different reasons. But if you haven't read this series and you're trying to get into reading, like these are the OG books like that did it for me. So highly recommend. And yeah, what a way to start off. Like, I just feel like this is already so amazing. Okay, the next one is a trilogy, and dare I say, I may even love this one more than the Percy Jackson series, which is saying something. That's saying a lot. Also, I realize I don't have 3 books here because apparently, as we have discovered, I haven't learned my lesson 15 years later, and I actually lent the first book to a friend this year, which I then went through a friendship breakup with and got ghosted. That's tea for another time. And never got the first book back. So I have to, this one I can actually order to replace the first book, but like obviously I have not learned my lesson 20 years later from being 10 years old. And the lending books to people, I think this is just a sign I should stop doing that. Anyways, not to get sidetracked or anything, but this series takes place in Victorian London, which already I was like immediately hooked as a 13-year-old on this because like, one, it's London. Who wouldn't want to go to London? Also, I'm about to leave for London, so excited about that. But also the Victorian era. Like, I love the Victorian era. I feel like if there was one era of time that I would love to be transported back to, it's the Victorian era, purely for fashion reasons, because like the series is just all like masquerade balls and gowns and corsets, and it's like dainty and beautiful and just regal and stunning, and all the words that like describe the elegance and opulence of this era. So already I'm like hooked on this. It kind of reminds me of like Vampire Diaries time with like Catherine in the 1864 super like big green ball gown running through the, what is it, the flower gardens and stuff. Like, that's what this reminds me of. This series centers on main character Tessa Gray, who has just arrived in London to meet her brother, who she is going to live with because her parents, I think, die, so she's like an orphan now, and so she moves to London to live with him, only to find out that her brother has been kidnapped. There's like an evil villain throughout the series that they're fighting, and she ends up taking refuge in this institute in London who belongs to the Shadow Hunters. And Shadow Hunters are these warriors who are like half human, half angel, so very similar to like demigods, and they save the world fighting demons. And so she takes refuge at their institute while she looks for their brother. She also has some kind of like powers that makes the villain want her in this series, and so partially she's also staying at the institute out of a need for like protection with the Shadow Hunters and everything, so they're protecting her while she's like trying to get her brother back, and like while they're trying to save the world from this villain and everything. She meets these 2 boys who live at the institute and train as Shadow Hunters called Will and Jem, and they're not brothers by blood, but when you're a Shadow Hunter, you can voluntarily tie your life to someone else who you trust wholeheartedly, and they kind of become like your bonded brother or sister. I think there's a term for it. I think it's called parabadi, if I remember correctly. Don't come for me if that's wrong. But there's like this whole ceremony where you can like kind of ceremonially bond yourself to someone else for life. And so like the other person can kind of like feel your pain and sense your emotions, and it's a very like just intimate, deeper bond on a different level. And so these 2 boys have that bond, they're parabadi, and so obviously there's a love triangle between the three of them. So these two brothers are protecting her, she becomes friends with them, and obviously there's a love triangle between them. But what sets the series truly apart from anything I'd read before and anything I've read after this series is the fact that the love triangle is executed so well and so perfectly that you are literally rooting for her to end up with both of them, which I have never experienced in my entire life, and I've never experienced since reading this trilogy. And I feel like that just says something about the author too, because her writing style is so exquisite. She has such an attention to detail. The vivid descriptive imagery, the world building, the way she sets everything up, and also the way that she crafts the relationships between the characters is so magnificent and exquisite. Like I can't even find the words to describe it. And like she has this relationship between, you know, like one of the brothers and the main character, and like you just think it can't get any better than that, and it is just like beautiful, and you want them to end up together. And then she has these interactions with the other brother, and they are like equally as beautiful and amazing in different ways, and you just truly can't choose between them. Like there's just no way. And I've never seen that done before. I've never had that experience where I'm rooting for both of them to win, because usually in love triangles, like I feel like a lot of the older ones, like trying to think of like an example, like Hunger Games, like obviously no one's rooting for Gale in the Hunger Games, but in this one, like imagine you have two Pitas, like that's what this felt like, and never have experienced that ever since. But honestly, overall the series is just like beautiful in its own right. There's also secondary series that kind of like branch off of this one. There's like a whole like ancestry line of characters that have come from the series, and like how they're all connected. These people's kids, like 20 years down the line, now having relationships with each other. Like everyone's kind of like interwoven into this big beautiful web. Like there's just this huge ancestry of series that are now out, and I've never seen that done before the way she does it, and I just feel like I'm just in complete awe of that. This next series is definitely for all my bachelor girlies, and I feel like it gave me my first taste of the romantasy genre, and that is the Selection series by Kierra Cass. If you're a bachelor fan, you would love this. Like imagine The Bachelor, but like 35 girls in a regal royal setting. There's ball gowns, and they're all competing to win the prince's heart and become the future queen of the kingdom. That's the series. This series is about America's singer who lives in the kingdom, and the kingdom is organized in like a caste system kind of way. So like everyone in the kingdom has a number, and their number basically defines their income level and the occupation that they can have. So like 1 is like the richest of the rich, I think, and then it goes all the way down to like 8, I think, and 8 is the poorest. And so if you're like 1, you can be like a model, or that means like you're super beautiful and everything, and you have a really high income level. America, I think, is like a 5 or a 6, and her family are musicians. So in simple terms, she's like middle class. But the way that the kingdom decides who is going to compete for the prince's heart, and the competition is called the Selection, by the way, should have said that, hence the name of the series. But they decide this through a random lottery drawing where they put all the girls' names from all the provinces, the cast, the regions into this big pot, and basically pick 35 girls, and America ends up being one of the names picked, which she's like initially not excited about because she already has a boyfriend back home. She's also not super excited because she's heard that the prince also has a reputation and just like is kind of there to date all the girls and just kind of like be the bachelor of everything. But her perception is challenged when she actually goes and meets him and realizes that she has a genuine deep connection with him, and eventually starts to fight for him. There is kind of a love triangle because she still has her boy back home, but honestly this was one of the ones that was executed pretty poorly. So like it's mostly about her romance with the prince, her falling for him, them falling for each other, and then there's also like plot twists and drama because there are 34 other girls all fighting for his heart, and like he is kind of genuinely attracted to a couple of them throughout the process, and like she kind of questions herself at time and questions their connection. And there's like other things that happen, but that's kind of the premise of this series. And yeah, it was just really my introduction into the romantasy genre. Speaking of romance, the next 6 are all romance books, and I kind of have to talk about them in tandem because they're all very similar to each other. They're all kind of like travel romances, and I think all of these really introduced me to like the classic romance book tropes. So starting with the first 3, these are like semi-travel romances. I feel like really only the first one is, to be honest. The first one is called Anna and the French Kiss, and it is about the main character named Anna, and she moves across the country to attend a French high school in Paris, France, and she has a friends to lovers relationship with her best friend that she meets while she's there, namesake Clare, and there's also kind of like this found family aspect to it. This is probably my favorite of the three. Honestly, I shouldn't say that. They're all honestly pretty good in like different ways. I think I just like this one because it's kind of like travel abroad and like it focuses more on the travel aspect than the other two. And also I'm going to Paris next week, so it feels like the perfect time to kind of like relive the nostalgia of this one, because I remember being like a teenage girl dreaming of taking like a cross-country Europe trip, and that's exactly what I'm doing this week. So yeah, it just feels like the perfect time to bring this one up again. But I just love the romance in this one. This one was kind of like my introduction to the friends to lovers thing, and then the other ones, this one, Island the Happily Ever After, also partially takes place in Paris, but I think it also takes place back in the States. And this one is the bad boy slash good girl trope, which was, I think, my first experience reading something like that. So like this one too. And then the last one is Lola and the Boy Next Door, and this is very evidently the boy next door trope. And then this one takes place in San Francisco, which I kind of like because I live in California. So yeah, all of those three are super good. These other three are similar. Oh my god, I didn't even get to say, these are all by Stephanie Perkins. That's the author, if you want to check them out. And then the next three are also travel romances. These focus more on the travel aspect, I feel like. So I kind of like them more for that side of things, although I still love the other ones. But these all take place in like different countries. So we have Love and Luck. That one takes place in Ireland, and honestly don't remember too much about that one. But I do remember a lot about this one, Love and Gelato. This is like a Lizzie McGuire Italian summer adventure kind of book slash romance, and that's, yeah, I thought I remembered more, but that's all I remember. But it was really fun. They made a movie. The movie was terrible. Don't watch it, but read the book. And then this last one is probably my favorite of those three. It's called Love and Olives, and it takes place in Greece, which, if you've heard me talk about it before, I talk about this all the time, but Greece has been like my bucket list go-to travel destination for the past few years. I've always wanted to go there. Still haven't been. I still don't plan to go, but maybe next summer. Eventually it's gonna happen. But Greece is like at the top of my list, and this one takes place in Greece. It's about a girl who goes to like visit her dad, who she's been kind of estranged from, and then all of a sudden her mom pressures her to go and like visit the dad, I think, and she meets a Greek boy there who becomes her love interest that she falls in love with. I literally think his name is Oliver, if I remember. I really don't remember. But it's so fun. They like have this huge adventure in Greece. She also is like into film or something like that, and so they work on this documentary with her dad over the course of the summer, and there's like some plot twists throughout here. That's the extent of like what I remember about this, but I remember it being really good and me like crying after I finished it. Those are really all the early books that I read like growing up in my childhood up until I started college, and then went through that period of time, like I said, where I just stopped reading for a while. These next few series, I have 3 left to talk about, are books that I started reading fresh out of college, and that like got me back into everything and like really rekindled the flame that kind of had been dormant during the time I was in college. And now, honestly though, are some of my favorites of all time, and I can't wait to talk about them. And what I love about getting out of the college bubble and back into the world of reading is that the series that introduced me back into this world was A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. This is one of my favorites of all time now, and I just love that this is like what I came back to read for the first time since like 4 years prior. The first book in this series is pretty much a Beauty and the Beast retelling. It's about a character named Feyre, and she lives in this magical world with fairies and fae. She is a human, so there's like 2 sides to the world basically, and she lives in the human side where all the villages are and stuff, and she has like no contact with the other side until she kills this magical wolf who was actually not a wolf but a fairy, and she is demanded to come over to the other side to basically be a prisoner for the whole rest of her life. And so she decides to do it out of trying to like protect her family and everything. So she leaves her home, leaves everything behind, and gets like thrust into this new world that she is now being exposed to for the first time. And she's like technically like a prisoner in this world to a fae named Tamlin, but she's not really a prisoner. She's kind of like let loose, and like they let her kind of like roam around as long as she doesn't try to leave or anything. And so she doesn't have like the most terrible time. She's just kind of like learning how to adjust, and like obviously misses her family and stuff. But as she gets to know Tamlin, she starts to fall in love with him, and she just begins to learn more about the world, and like comes to really have like an appreciation for the fae and for this world. And there's also all these different courts that make up the fae world, and so she's in the spring court, so it's like always spring there. There's also like the night court, the day court, the dawn court. Like there's all these different kind of like seasonal themed courts. And so she, over the course of the next few books, we kind of see her like go on this journey through the courts and like meeting new characters and forming relationships. And so there's like romance and adventure and angst. And yeah, so I feel like that's all I can really divulge without completely spoiling this, because I just, like, I can't give you too many details about this. But if that all sounds super appetizing to you and like you enjoy the high romantasy genre, then you would really enjoy this series. She also has two sisters that the later books focus more on, and Sarah J Maas is actually still working on the series. She just wrapped up, I think, the 6th book in the series, so this is an ongoing one. It's a really good time to kind of like catch up on the first few books if you haven't read these yet, so highly recommend. And then her 6th book is on the 3rd sister, who like arguably is the most underrated sister. She's kind of like the quiet, reserved one, but there's a lot of theories that she has like this, she has like the greatest power of like anyone in the series. And so we're about to find out more on her story. But yeah, really good time to pick these up. I think this is also being turned into a show. Don't know if that's still happening, but in any case, like these are all really good. The next series I read after I finished the Court of Thorns and Roses series was the Addicted series. These are the first 2 books. I just grabbed the first 2 just for the sake of showing you, but yeah, this is what they look like. These are by Krista and Becca Ritchie, and the best way I can think to describe the series is if like Gossip Girl had a crossover with like the Kardashians. That's what this kind of feels like to me. Like it's kind of like high society. It's about 3 sisters who are like super rich, and like they basically live the Gossip Girl like luxury life. But there's also kind of like elements of like found family, and the books throughout the series follow each sister's like individual journey, their individual romance, and like what they each struggle with, because they kind of each have like different struggles and just struggle in different ways. And so that's kind of like the best way I can describe this. There's also like a period of time within the books that they film some kind of like family reality TV show that is very reminiscent of like the Kardashians. Like that's what it felt like reading. So that's kind of the best way I can describe these, but I just love the found family aspect in these. I think that was my favorite thing that really got me hooked onto these, because they just have like really tight bonds with each other, and like it's all about the family being supportive and like uplifting each other. And yes, they like struggle and have their fights, but it's about them like working it out, and also like the struggles they have in their relationships and stuff. And yeah, I feel like that's kind of overall what I can tell you about the series, but it's really, really good, and I wish I could speak about this one more eloquently than I am right now, but it's easily become one of my favorites. I think there's like 10 books in total, and now the series is complete. They just kind of like stopped releasing the newer versions of the covers and stuff, so like now all the books are out. And we are down to the last series that I'm talking about in this video, and I read this one pretty recently. I actually also did a reading vlog, so if you've been like keeping up with my videos, you probably already know what this is about. But the last one is the Shatter Me series by Tahereh Mafi, and this one is one of the OG series that came out when I was like around 13ish or so, but for some reason I never picked it up, and I don't remember why, except like I remember hearing that the world building wasn't that good, which like definitely was still true after I read this. The world building isn't that great, and like the fantasy side of things, it's definitely more romance than not, but the storyline and the characters are great, and I think that's what really like drew me to read this and kept me like kind of hanging on for the other books in the series. But this series centers on Juliet, who lives in this like dystopian world, and in the beginning of the book she's like a prisoner in this compound because she has this deathly power where she can kill someone with a single touch, so no one's allowed to touch her. She's grown up her entire life kind of just being like isolated and not allowed to be around people for that reason, and this man comes in occasionally and like is trying to get her to touch him, and he kind of sees her as an experiment, or so we think at this time, and she just like refuses to touch him because she's, you know, like a compassionate, empathetic person, and she's like, no, I don't want to hurt you, like I don't want to hurt anyone. She kind of hates herself. She's kind of just like been isolated and like mentally just in her head and in herself for all of this time. As we get deeper and deeper into the series, we discover that there's actually other people who have abilities like her that are like different, but they're kind of like different superpowers. This kind of makes me think of like for lack of a better term, like Power Rangers or Avengers. Like there are all these people with like different abilities and stuff, and they come together. They have like this found family aspect, so you do find that in this book, which I also really loved about this, and I think that's why I read it for so long. And then there's also kind of like romance. There's a love triangle going on at some point. And yeah, I feel like that's all I really can say without spoiling. But the found family is probably my favorite part of this because I feel like the characters all get really close over time, and like it isn't something that happens overnight. It's like something that takes the course across all of these books. And I think there's actually spin-off books as well that I haven't read and I haven't caught up with that kind of also give like background context to what happens in these. Haven't read those yet, but I've also heard they're really good. But yeah, love this series. If you like dystopian stuff that's kind of like basic building blocks of world building, then I think you'd like this one. But yeah, that's the last series, and wow, it was so fun to film this and kind of like relive my entire childhood, because like all these books were my personalities at some point, like different points in time, and it just felt so, I don't know, it feels kind of like fulfilling to talk about these now. And yeah, I hope you found some books if you're like getting into reading and like trying to become a reader again. I hope that some of these maybe spark something in you to where you want to like maybe order them and try them out and see what you think. But I feel like this is definitely the ultimate starter pack for like fantasy slash romance slash romantasy reads. So if you're interested in that genre, highly recommend all of these. And yeah, thank you for watching this video. There's so many exciting things in the work after this video comes out. Next up is my European Girl summer trip, and I could not be more excited. I can't wait. I leave in 2 days, which is insane. And you're coming with me, obviously, for all of that, because I definitely want the memories of that captured on film. So yeah, I just can't wait for that, and I can't wait for you to see everything that we do together and come on the adventure. So thank you for watching this video. In the meantime, if you liked it, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I'll link all my socials below if you want to follow along. I'll also post all the Europe trip pics there, so if you want to see that. And I will see you guys in the next one very, very soon. Bye!